Okay, good morning. We are going to do a little bit more factoring today before we start solving quadratic equations. Factoring is one of the keys to being able to solve quadratic equations, so we got to be good at it. This is going to be connected to 3 Khan Academy assignments that I will assign in Google Classroom. So each one of these pages that I do is a different Khan Academy assignment. Okay, so the first section is, that's not the first section, that's the third section. Okay, the first section is called GCF Factoring Intro, and that's going to be on Khan Academy. Okay, so in this first example, we're looking at so the area of this combination pink-blue rectangle is 6x squared minus 18. Okay, and we're looking for what is common to both of these terms. Okay, then we see that's what we can take out of both terms, and then we'll see what we're left with. So if you notice in the area model up here, they took out a 6. So the largest number we can take out of both terms is a 6. Okay, if we take that 6 out of both terms, the first term would leave us with just an x squared if we divided that 6x squared by 6. And the second term, 18 minus 18, if we took a 6, that would be left with minus 3. Therefore, in this area model at the top, we're left with x squared and negative 3. And you can go ahead and check your work when you multiply the length 6 times the width 3. That does give us 6x squared, and the 6 times negative 3 gives us negative 18. So the width in this case would be x squared minus 3. Okay, so we factored out a 6, and we broke this down to this. Okay. I'm gonna have to yell at Marco to be quiet in a second here. Okay, so what do we break this down to? So 10x squared plus 50x. What goes into both 10x squared and 50x? So what can we take out of both those terms? Okay, so they both end in 0, so I can take a 10 out. Is there anything? There's nothing larger I can take out. And then I want to see how many x's that I can take out of both terms. And they both have at least one x, so I'm going to take one x out. What does that leave us with in the first term? If I took a 10x out of 10x squared, I took a 10 out, I took one x out, so that leaves me with 1x in the first term. And I took a 10x out of this 50x. So if I were to divide 50x by 10x, that would leave me with simply a 5. Okay, and if I wanted to, I could go back in and multiply that 10x through just to double check my work, and it would give me that answer. But I see that choice right here for letter A. Okay. Okay, so that's your first section on Khan Academy. The next section is called Factoring Quadratic. Still early in the morning. Factoring Quadratics Intro, and again, that's on Khan Academy as well. Okay, so the first problem is another one of those area models. So we want to figure out what do we multiply x by 8 by to get this x squared minus x minus 72. Okay, so in other words, what's the width? Okay. When I have a polynomial like this with in this format here, x squared plus or minus an x term plus or minus a constant. That's in standard form. It's quadratic in standard form. So I like to use a method I call the diamond method. Okay, so that means I put the last number on top, the minus 72, and then the middle number, the coefficient of the middle number, which would be -1 on the bottom. So what I'm looking for is I'm looking for how I can factor that x squared minus x into a product of two binomials. Okay, so if I were to use FOIL, the first two values would have to be x to get us that x squared. Now to get the second terms in those binomials, I'm using this diamond method here. And the way I use this is I need to think of two numbers that multiply to give me -72, and that can be added to give me -1. So what two numbers can multiply to give us -72? And when I add those same two numbers, they would give me -1. Okay, so you want to think of your factors as 72. Okay, and I immediately know that 8 times 9 has a difference of 1. So I want to think of an 8 and a 9, because 8 times 9 gives us 72. But they need to be negative, and they need to have a difference of -1. So if I simply change the sign of this -9, of the 9 to negative, now 8 times -9 gives us -72, and 8 plus -9 gives us the -1 here. Okay, so that would give us x plus 8 and x minus 9. Okay, so I've factored that x squared minus x minus 72 to x plus 8 times x minus 9. Now, how do I check that to make sure it's correct? Well, we would just go ahead and multiply through like we did in the last section. So x times x, the first terms give us x squared. The outside terms, x times -x, give us -9x. The inside terms, 8 times x give us 8x. And the last terms, 8 times -9, give us -72. And then when we can combine those, -9x plus 8x is -x. And we're left with that -72. Okay, so all of this was just our check work. We were done when we factored it to be that number right there. Okay, let me show you one more example without the area where we're just using the diamond method. Okay, so in this case, and this only works when there's not a coefficient in front of your x squared term. And it's in standard form going from x squared to x. No, not now. Ask your mama. Hey, Marco, I'm making a video right now. Okay. Okay, so this is standard form x squared. Then we've got an x. Then we got a constant here. Okay, so we're going to put that last term, that -10 at the top, and the middle term, the -3, goes here. Okay, so we need two numbers that multiply to give us -10 and add to give us -3. Okay, so I could multiply a 5 and a 2, and if that 5 were negative, -5 times 2 would give us the -10. -5 plus 2 would give us the -3. Sometimes you may have to try get a few around before you find out those two numbers. But we end up with x minus 5 and x plus 2. Okay. All right, and for the sake of time, I'm not going to go ahead and check my work. But you're going to always want to just multiply through to make sure you end up with that original expression. Okay, so this is our solution right here, and you would enter that here on Khan Academy. Okay, one more section, and then I'll let you guys get to work. Okay, the last section is called Factoring Quadratics with a Common Factor. And this is the last Khan Academy assignment that you have for this section. And this is the difference here is it says with a common factor. Okay, so there is a term I can take out of all three of these terms before I do my diamond method and factor here. So what goes into all three of these terms here? Negative 4x squared minus 28x minus 48. Okay, so I can't really break this down until I take a common factor out. So what goes into all of those? Negative 4 goes into all three of those terms. So if I took a negative 4 out of the first term, that would leave us with an x squared. If I take a negative 4 out of this negative 28x, that would leave us with plus 7x. And if I take a negative 4 out of the negative 48, that would give us a plus 12. Okay, so I just took of all these three terms up here, I just took a 4 out of everything. Okay, so what I've written here is equal to what we started with. Okay, but now that allows me, with those terms in the middle, to factor that down further. So remember, my last term would go on top, and my middle term would go on the bottom. And I want two numbers that multiply to give us 12 and add to give us 7. In this case, it would be pretty straightforward, a positive 3 and a positive 4. They multiply to give us 12, and we add to give us 7. So therefore, I could break down the terms in the parentheses to x plus 3 and x plus 4. Okay, and again, it's always a good idea to go back. If I were to multiply all of these together, I'm going to get back my original term. I'm going to save a little time for the sake of the video, but it's always a good idea, especially until you really got the hang of this, to do that. Okay, and last but not least, what term goes into those three terms in the last problem? 7x squared plus 28x minus 35. I can take a 7 out of everything. So if I take a 7 out of 7x squared, that leaves me with x squared. If I take a 28x, if I take a 7 out of 28x, and when I say take out, I mean divide by, that would leave us with a 4x. And when I take a 7 out of negative 35, that would leave us with negative 5. Okay, so I just divided every single term here by a positive 7. Okay, now I've got, I can break that down, factor that down. So that's going to break down to 7, and then there will be x plus or minus a number and x plus or minus a number. And I'll put my diamond up here. Okay, and what number goes on top? That negative 35 goes on top, and the 28 goes on the bottom. Okay, so that would give us, so two numbers. Oh, I'm sorry, it's early in the morning. I got to back up on that. Okay, as I'm thinking about that, I'm realizing I can't break those down because I did use the wrong numbers. Okay, so we're using, once I've taken the 7 out, I've got this here, so negative 5 goes on the top, and our 4 goes on the bottom. So two numbers that multiply to give us negative 5 and add to give us 4. Okay, so multiply to give us 5. There's only two numbers that multiply to give us 5. That would be 5 and 1. Now the only question is, one of them's got to be negative. So is it the 5 or is it the 1? Okay, it'd be the 1 here, because 5 plus negative 1 is 4. So our solution would be x plus 5 from here, and x minus 1 from here. Okay, And I would strongly suggest you multiply things through. Just double check your work, make sure you get the original expression. But I'm going to save you guys the time for the sake of the video. So, this will be associated with 3 Khan Academy assignments, and those will be in your Google Classroom. Good luck, and let me know if you need any help.